Hello, everyone. This is Eric Pennington, and welcome to the Spirit of EQ podcast. We're glad that you've tuned in. A few things we wanted to tell you at the beginning of the show, and that's this podcast was created to be a tool to help you, primarily to discover and grow your EQ. Science and our own lived experiences confirm that the better we are at managing our emotions, the better we're going to be at making decisions, which leads to a better life. And that's something we all want. We're glad that you've taken out the time today to listen and hope that something that you hear will lead to a breakthrough. Hey, one last thing. We'd really appreciate a review on whichever platform you use to listen. And if you want to, leave some comments about what you heard today, as well as follow and subscribe. That way you won't miss a single episode as we continue this journey. And with that, the show begins. Quincy Williams, welcome to the Spirit of EQ podcast.
Appreciate you having me here.
Jeff, seeing you again as always. Good thing.
Nice being here.
Quincy, I was just thinking offline, when we start to go down the path of exercise, nutrition, and all things corporate wellness, you're somebody we always think about. The ironic and yet embarrassing part is that we haven't had you back on the show for like 2 years.
We've all been working, right? We've all been
no
working
excuse. No excuse. We definitely should have had you back sooner. However, I have been chomping at the bit because there's been a lot that has changed since 2 years ago, and we're going to get into some of those things specifically. But when we look at the world of exercise, nutrition, corporate wellness, it always seems like it's this endless pursuit that I don't even know if you'd say, and that maybe will lead me to my first question. Do you think we're getting closer to like where we're in really good shape, societal wise?
That's a great question. I really think that we are in terms of awareness. I mean, there's so many different diets, so many different trends out there, so many different platforms to where you can get resources for some sort of wellness, exercise, or fitness. So I think in that aspect, we have improved. But, with so much information comes confusion sometimes.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because the gram.
Do it for the gram.
So many influencers, so many people, and I am a sucker for it at times because I'll see someone who appears to be like they know what they're talking about, and they'll be like, do this exercise for this particular thing. Sure. And I'll go, oh, that's really interesting. And then I follow. And then another one. And then before I know it, I've got like 15, 20 different, and I don't need all those
timeline
folks.
is flooded, yeah.
I don't need all of those folks.
Right.
And what I'm wondering is, and I actually have to like do an audit and go back through and kind of look at it from the perspective of, okay, these three individuals I know have certifications, I know their background, I know how strong they are in research. Well, these three, then I need to get rid of these other 8. Not because maybe they're bad people or that they don't know what they're talking about, but I can't imagine if you're someone who is on social media and there is a lot of information.
There's, being on social media is part of the job, and just seeing the amount of influencers, not that it's a bad thing, because like we said, there's a lot of good resources that comes out of that. But however, when your timeline is flooded with that, you get a lot of false information and misinformation, and it's, it could be really, really confusing to everyone. For example, this morning I had a client, and while I was away last week, she showed me some of the things that she did, and lo and behold, guess where she got her information from? Instagram. Okay. But she had a lot of she showed me some of the exercises, right. And I had mentioned to her, hey, this is great. You can do something like this maybe twice a week, and then just be sure to switch it up a little bit. But to that case, she did get helpful information. But what about everyone who may be on a different weight loss journey and they see something on social media that may not be conducive to what they should be doing, Right. What happens then? So it's important to understand where we get our information and be sure to flooded out, basically.
Is it a proceed with caution type thing?
It really is. It really is. I mean, just understand where you're getting your information from. It's basically, if your doctor were to tell you to do something, you know, you would want to make sure to look into everything so to best protect yourself, you know?
What's interesting too, these folks that I'm thinking of right now, I forget the organization, but the main person behind it, and I'm sorry, the names are escaping me, but they mentioned that one of the ways you can tell whether or not there's real strong validity in, because a lot of times with these, I use the term influencers. I know some of them are more than just that, but they'll say, well, a recent study came out that said that by running 5 miles, you will gain X amount of cardiovascular health type thing, right? And he said that if you really want to know the best kind of study, it's the one that invites scrutiny and skepticism. Because if you truly are trying to help, you want to have the potential of holes being poked. Because as you're creating or as you're doing that study, I want to find out if there's a gap before I put it out there for the world.
I think you make an interesting point, because it's almost like, you know, I come from an athletic background, and I can relate that to a athlete seeking greatness, right? Not just, I mean, we can use it in this case of, you know, just
and I should have said healthy skepticism, which the keyword healthy.
Yeah, well,
because we know on the gram you're going to get
some criticism. Yeah, but
right.
It's about the criticism that you need and that you seek to listen to.
So to the athletics.
So it was one of those things where you look at some of the greats and they're typically not satisfied with where they are. They seek to get better, and when they seek to get better, they go out for that information. So what do? They hire an extra coach, or they look at different information. So, you know, when we look at this and we look at it just from a fitness standpoint, you don't necessarily have to be great at it. You just have to understand and know what your goal is, and be acceptable and willing to get constructive criticism.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm at the beginning right now because I've had some health issues and getting things slowly resolved. So if you had to pick 3 things of what you're talking about, what should I look for in the advice that I'm getting?
I think really the credibility, you know. I think having someone that goes through it and not only has gone through it, but has been able to help others do it in the exact same formula.
Okay.
I think that validates that person and how they're able to help. I think the most important thing is to understand and give yourself grace too, you know. So if you're in the beginning of your exercise phase or weight loss journey or strength training journey or whatever it is, just know it's not going to be linear and all the way up, you know.
Okay.
Regardless of what we see on social media, you know, it's just like any other goal or any other project that we're doing. We got to give ourselves grace when we're trying to learn something, you know, and putting one foot in front of the other when there is that time where, you know, maybe you have a slip up, but that's just part of it. So understanding to give yourself grace first and putting one foot in front of the other and trusting your coach. I think those would be the biggest 3.
Okay. So I'm going to add a question. This may not be the spot for it. If it isn't, we can ask it later. What would you advise of someone of my advanced experience or age?
Okay.
Code.
Old, yeah.
There it is. A lot of people out there might be feeling, you know, that's the first thing is understand what physical activity is. You know, physical activity, if you look at it, we talked about this earlier. If you look at it on Instagram, a lot of the things that you see may not be something that you need to be doing. You know, being in the gym is great. Being physically active anywhere, making it fun, and understanding the foundation and the functional movements behind it, that's what's going to get you the results. So your body moves, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. Your body moves in 6 different planes of motions, or not 3 different planes of motions, but you have 6 really foundational movements. You got to push, you pull, a plank, squat, lunge, and rotate. Okay. So if you're doing those things, you don't have to do them on a large scale, but if you're doing those things and you're making it physically active, and it's something that you can do each day, I think those are great.
Okay.
You know, one thing is interesting in your question too, and we may have used this analogy before. It's like the building of a house. You know, you go into the model home and you pick the model you like, and it's all decorated and it's got and you're just like, you fall in love with it. As soon as you sign the deal for the construction, you go by that site and it's an absolute, right? And it's an absolute mess. But the optimism in that, and I think it's the same for exercise, is that they just dug the hole. You have completed the hole. They dug the hole. And then maybe when you go back 2 weeks later, oh, look, they've got the concrete trucks there. And then maybe another 2 weeks, they've poured the concrete foundation. What would it be like if the first trip out to the start of the home, you see there's mud everywhere, there's trucks, and you said, well, I'm done. This should have been just like I saw it in that picture in the model home.
Yep.
Right?
And you see that a lot, especially from January to March.
Yeah, from the resolution deal, right?
Yep.
And I think, Jeff, to what within your question is so great is that, you know, this is, in my opinion, and Quincy, I mean, you may add or take away, it's more of a marathon. Right. It's not about that if I just go all out in this week, I'm going to lose 5 pounds.
Right.
Because I'm going to get into we'll get into this idea about mindset and about our emotions and what role they're playing in it as to why we're doing this. Because I think sometimes we have the wrong motivations around why we exercise. I totally get it. If someone is lifting weights and progressive overload, the whole idea of that, yes, eventually you are going to build muscle.
Right.
Right? But if you go into it from the perspective that I want the muscle, that's what because look how that looks, whatever, I think you're going to find yourself disappointed. And again, my opinion, but I think sometimes we have to really be careful, because what I think plagues us, and there's probably some science to it as well, is that we don't create sustainable practices.
Right.
You know, we kind of create this, I saw this photo, I saw this video, and I feel really terrible about myself, and I got to do something about this. And we think of it like AI. I'll take, this will be done tomorrow. This will be done next week.
It is that part of how you set your goals. If today I set my goal, I'm running a marathon, I'm probably never ever going to run a marathon.
Right.
Okay. But if I set a goal of, and I have set some of these goals I need for, like, how much weight I want to lose, mobility, cardiovascular, is that the better way to do it?
Absolutely. I think, and I was just thinking while you were talking.
And Quincy, I'm interrupting you, but that's what I meant by sustainable.
Yes.
So,
and a lot of a lot of that sustainability comes from really your why. You know, why do you want to run a marathon? Why do you need cardiovascular endurance? You know, what are the, other than, you know, I need to look good and feel good or check something off in my box. Usually everyone's goals or everyone's motive, there's a reason and there's a why behind it. You know, I remember really first getting into fitness in my early 20s. I'll just say that. in my early 20s, I remember stepping foot in a gym, and it felt natural, but it was intimidating, but it felt natural. And it felt natural because for me and my story, I always saw bodybuilding on TV. My dad had this old satellite back in the 80s, you know, the big,
the giant ones.
The big giant satellites. Yeah. And one day I didn't know it was Mr. Olympia at the time, but I'm watching Mr. Olympia, and I may have been 7, 8 years old. And I see that, And it's like, wow, my mom, she's always been one who exercises. She, we all have those builds where your weight fluctuates, right?
Right.
And so as a young boy, I remember watching her do Richard Simmons, Sweating to the Oldies. You remember that?
I remember that.
I remember her doing that, and she would do it religiously every day. And so I was just always around exercise. But when I walked into the gym, I was a little intimidated, and I would see these big guys, and I never really wanted to be like that. I just wanted to push myself until I started talking to someone, and he was one of the most humble, most nicest guys. And so he invited me one day to work out with him. And with that, it came a lot of his friends and a lot of his friends' friends. And there became like this social group where we started interacting outside of the gym. So it brought a social community for me. Mm-hmm. It was something I was able to just kind of pick up on too. So that was really my why in getting into fitness and training. So I've talked to many of clients, and they give me their reasons on, okay, I saw this person on this show and I love her look, or I love his look. That's how I want to look. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think if it's something where it's going to challenge you and it's going to help you and allow you to reach a extra level, mm-hmm. and not only just your fitness and then your health, but just your mindset, mm-hmm. Because you've took a goal for whatever reason and you maximize it, and now where else can you go with that? So to your point, really finding the why behind why do you need why do you want to exercise? Why do you want to look a certain way? Why do you want to feel a certain way? Those are the bigger questions.
Okay.
Well, your mindset thing is really a powerful thing, right? Because in the work that we do around teaching, coaching, emotional intelligence, is we start with this: we're on a journey to build a practice around using this learnable skill called emotional intelligence. Not an information exchange, not something where you can check the box and say, hey, I took an assessment and my score was X and I'm going to work on these 3 things. Because when emotional intelligence really matters is when the you-know-what hits the fan on a Monday morning,
right,
and it's raining outside.
That's right.
Okay. That's one, right? So our ability to tap into those tools is very, very important. Mm-hmm. Well, I look at exercise and we think about longevity, for example. I won't reveal my age. You guys already did your thing, so I'm going to just keep it a secret. But what's interesting, I am not a young chicken for those in the audience. And I had I was in my kitchen and I, just doing my normal deal. There was a breakfast thing, and I bumped the glass that was on the edge of the counter, and it starts to go where glass, is going to go. And Quincy, I grabbed it, and I was thinking, that's the fast twitch muscle, right?
Absolutely.
Now you can say, oh, applause for Eric. He caught the glass before it hit the ground and all that. But the point, though, is what about when I'm 75
mm-hmm.
and there's water on the hardwood floor
mm-hmm.
and I slip?
Absolutely.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That's when you're going to need that.
Yep.
I may not need it right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I might be able to, maybe that little action that I just had with the glass is cool and normal for my age, whatever you want to say. But what about when you're 75 and
right.
supposedly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think what I found as the motivator is I want to do everything I can now,
right,
to set me up for success down that road. No guarantees. I can get hit by a bus today, all game over, as it could be for anybody. But if I'm so lucky to get to that age, what I'm doing now will matter. And that's a big thing. So the idea of building a practice. Jeff alluded to, okay, I'm getting through some illness stuff. I'm working, I'm looking at some different things. And obviously he didn't reveal anything too personal, but my gut is he's going to need to build a practice of what it is that he is doing. Now, if he can treat himself with grace, right? Realizing that he did great on Monday and Tuesday, but Wednesday and Thursday was an off.
Yep.
Got back at it on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So he had 2 days down, 5 days up. Is it that the approach that it would be helpful for him? And not to diagnose you, Jeff, and to say what you need to do, but I think, from your perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all going to go through those things. It's, I would love to work out 7 days a week, Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. How do you define it? Working out 7 days a week. Maybe I said I wanted 4 days of actual strength training, but in reality, I only was able to do 3 or 2, But on those other days, I went out, rode my bike, I took my dog for extra long walks, these different type things. Maybe just life gets in the way, right?
Yep.
So I didn't strength train 4 days a day or 4 days a week, but I did manage to go all 7 days, do something physically
Well, and
active.
Quincy, the thing I think about, and it applies to Jeff, it applies to me, it's like, what if at the end of that week, you're beating yourself up because you didn't lift 4 days out of that week? I mean, what benefit, what, it seems like that kind of mindset sets you back.
Yeah, it only destroys you, because you look at that, and it's we all go through this, especially now in this generation, it's instant gratification.
Right.
It kind of goes back to that. Oh, I didn't do 4 days a week. I suck. I'm never going to be able to make this. This weight's never going to come off. Why am I even trying? What's the purpose? Hopefully that's not how we treat our careers, right? We look at something and it's, hey, I want to get to the next level. How do I get to the next level? What do I need to do?
That to me is the great irony of America.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to our careers, we will move heaven and earth.
Right.
I mean, all hands on deck. I cannot sleep. I've got to go.
I gotta go.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about taking care of our bodies, I don't know if I can commit to that. I don't have time.
Mm-hmm. It's because we look at health as a quick fix for some reason. And we look at work and your career as a grind. It's so it's already kind of going back to what we talked about on the mindset piece, And so I think if we really reverse that, because if you can't move, I like to say to all of my clients, freedom of movement is freedom of life. If you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the friends in the world, but what good is it if you can't really enjoy doing the things that really matter? You can't get on the ground with your kids.
And to that point, right? And it's kind of veiled in our conversation today, is that eventually what you give your energy to, what you give your focus to, will come, a bill will come due.
Yeah. I told this story a little while ago about how I first got into the fitness industry, and at the first gym I ever worked at, in my interview process, I remember the owner saying, and we were just talking general fitness. He was saying anything. He was giving his story. It's an investment. What you do in your 40s, it's going to come around in your 50s, and what you do in your 50s, it's going to come around in your 60s. So I think with that, it's having the mindset or the, being able to try to forecast it too, to say, hey, I'm not going to be like this forever. You mentioned it earlier. So why don't I maximize what I have right now, what I can do, so that 10 years down the road, I'm still taking those vacations. I'm still playing golf. I'm still doing whatever. Just your quality of life is still at the maximum, And even if you're in a point or in a position where, you're going to have some chronic pains or some chronic diseases, how do you maximize that just to maintain and manage your life from now to this point for the next 10 years? What are the things that you can do? Maybe shut off your Instagram and not follow.
Right.
Not follow. So, because I only joke about that is because if and I'm just going to say, for example, if you are 50 and up, 60 and up, things are starting to slow down. Doing exercises, strength training, nutrition, all of it, it's going to matter. It's 100% going to matter. But do you have to do burpees? Is that really how is that helping the quality of life?
I think that's a tremendous insight.
What I mentioned before, you helped me put it in a different perspective of what are the things I want to be able to do as the goal rather than lose 50 pounds and lower my blood pressure, to some ridiculous number or something. But yeah, that's a different way for me to look at it.
Oh, and Jeff, I think about it from the perspective, because more than likely, if the goal is what you want to be able to do down the road, the things that you will do will give you the things.
I know,
that,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the irony?
It's the irony of it, yeah.
Because I've heard that said before about abs. That the obsession with I want a 6-pack ab. Well, if you do certain things and you eat certain foods and you do it the right way, you will get the abs. It's a byproduct of that behavior.
Absolutely.
Right?
You think of, engineers who build buildings and all these massive structures, what has to happen you got to see it, but then you've got to put it on paper. You've got to see how it works. You've got to understand how it works, and you really have to just do the work, So once it's planned, I think it was Jim Rohn who said it, it's, and I might butcher this, but he talked about you're not done. So you want to lose 50 pounds, creating the plan and looking at the plan from start point A to point B, and you have the plan mapped out. You're pretty much there. That's like, you're pretty much there. And I'm not talking a trainer give you a program, that's easy. The things are, if there's 50 pounds in this, okay, I have to maximize sleep. I have to look at my water intake. I have to look at my stress. How does the stress and those different hormones impact my weight loss journey? All of these things that could potentially wreck your goals. How much you can, I hear it all the time. A lot of my clients, I'll do this, but I'm not giving up this, So,
right.
And that may be okay, but what else are you willing to compromise on? What else are you willing to change? What bad?
And I would almost say,
have?
Quincy, when you said that, and Jeff, this from our work, is okay. You're saying that you're not going to give up this. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Right.
What is so important about it? Why is it a non-negotiable?
Where does you find out a lot?
Where does that come from?
Yep.
And again, if we've been given permission to go there, maybe that person will find out that maybe they've been using food as a tool to medicate.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And I'm just using that as one example. And I want to say for our audience with empathy, regardless of whether you're 30, 40, 60, 80, and regardless of what you did or did not do in the past, it does not matter, because here's something, and Quincy, you're certainly going to be more aware of it. I have read stories about people who were in their 70s who started lifting weights, and it was almost like a miracle transformation. And I got to believe that some of those folks, maybe even the majority potentially, were people who led sedentary, non-exercise lives.
100.
So it's not too late. So please understand that regardless of what you've done, what matters is what are you going to do now?
Right.
And going forward.
And what's the reason behind it?
There you go. Back to the motivation.
Right. Why do you want to reach said goal or, do certain things? I know, as you get older, things change. And we were all young once. And I come from an athletic background. And I specifically remember 28, 29, people would go, oh, wait till you hit 30. I'm like, what are you talking about? I feel like Superman, Right. And then it would go, oh, wait till you hit 35, 40. Right. There you go. I'm revealing my age, but it's all good. But I remember specifically when things started to change, it's always an evolution, but when things start to slow down, it's tough to change your mindset around that. Anything that has change or that requires change is usually sometimes tough with humans. And
Quincy, yeah, those neural pathways.
They
very powerful.
That is something that obviously you talk about a lot, but when we talk about mindset and being able to shift, it takes that, because we have to be able to change those bad habits. So I know for me, I had to change my mindset. Like, what are you competing for? What is your motivation on being in the gym, or not just being in the gym, but being healthy?
And now back to the episode. Jeff, what is the SEQ Development Report?
I'm glad you asked me that, Eric. The SEQ Development Report is something that we here at Spirit of EQ have developed to blend the idea of emotional intelligence with a person's spiritual life. And we're not talking about religion, we're talking about how they connect with themselves, other people, and the world around them.
Why is it important?
I think it's important because it allows someone to see where they stand, to give them information about maybe parts of their life they may need to work on, parts of their life that they're really doing well, and learn to leverage it. And it just gives a person a better way of getting through the world.
So how do you get this report?
Well, first, you need to contact us.
Mm-hmm.
Info at Spirit of EQ is just a great way to do it. Then you would take an assessment, 15, 20 minutes, done online. And then after that, the report requires a debrief to go through all the things in it, because it's got a ton of information. And then if you want to further your journey, we can do coaching and things like that with you down the road. And that's basically it.
Cool. Thanks, Jeff. And we'll be back to the episode after this.
Should
we always be questioning along the way on our journey? Like, why am I motivated? Because to your point, what you did at 30 is not going to be the same at 50.
Right. I think the real important thing is knowing what your body is capable of doing and how far it's going to get you.
Okay.
Think about how many times you've cut your finger, and just that little cut alters a lot on how you move, on how you, it does it a lot. So when certain health issues come into place, that's something we're all going to have to be on the lookout on, right?
Right.
But I think as you get older, it becomes more of a question on, do I want this to be a part of my big three, in my life? Because if it is, then it becomes your lifestyle, part of your lifestyle, and it becomes habit.
And that practice. You've built the practice.
So when you hit 70 years old, when you hit 80 years old, you're still in your stride. You're still able to take vacations. You're still able to pretty much be self-sufficient. So understanding those things and understanding how life is always going to evolve, I think that's going to help people live healthier lives.
And by the way, Jeff, I'm interrupting you, and I'm going to come back.
All right.
The 35-year-old, here's a news flash. I think it's earlier than 35. Maybe it's 30. But by the time you hit 30, 35, you start the decline on muscle mass.
Correct.
You start losing muscle. Am I close on that?
Yes. You start losing muscle. Doesn't mean that you can't maintain it.
Right.
You can maintain that muscle through the healthy lifestyle. I remember being 35, and for me at 35, it was so part of who I was. It was just what I did, and I didn't really feel or see until I started hitting 39, 40.
I'm gonna come back to that in a second, but go ahead, Jeff.
Well, that's like, I'll just use myself as an example. I'm not sure exactly why this, but like for myself, I've got a surgically reconstructed ankle.
Okay.
That was just one step away from getting fused, and then I have bursitis in the same side hip. So somebody with things like that are fairly permanent.
Correct.
I would probably benefit the most from seeing someone.
Yes, I think seeing a chiropractor, seeing a physical therapist, those things are always going to be a part of your
or
your program.
Somebody as a trainer.
As a trainer, for sure.
Because
Absolutely.
I know a good trainer.
And
I know a good trainer.
I know a few.
Yeah.
I think his name Quincy. Oh,
Quincy,
yeah.
because
I know a few.
because that's one of the fears that I have, trying to do more exercise and things, that I'm going to aggravate
Yeah.
those things.
And that's a thing where just understanding the body and what's happening right now. So with your ankle developing bursitis in that same side is because of the ankle. It's hard to move around with the compromised ankle. So your body says, okay, let me help you and do that, and
Is it compensating?
it's compensating for the ankle. So it's
Okay.
taking that load that the ankle usually
Would
bears,
bear. Okay.
and we're putting it in the hip
Yep.
now. So, the body can only do those things for so long until something else happens, So in terms of your training, I think your training needs to be focused more around strengthening both sides of your body. So a lot of unilateral training would be great for you, meaning training one side of the body and at one time, and then training the opposite side, just to gain equal parts strength, basically. So doing things like that, and remember, your body wants to rotate, right? Your body wants to push things. Your body wants to move things. It's supposed to, in order for, looking at the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years, So those are some of the things that need to be incorporated in your exercise routine, and really not looking at it from, and we do this a lot because we will look at a program or a routine and say, oh, where's the bench press? And how does that relate to where your goals are right now? Is that something
Well
that
said.
you really need right now? It's always going to be something that we need because our body needs to push things away. Our body needs to be able to move force.
Yep.
However, how are we moving that force? And what's the purpose of us moving that force? Can you move that force while walking, with a compromised ankle and a hip, So those are some things where keeping it fun, but keeping it functional, and
That's great.
more specific around your goals.
So, Jeff, you just hit on something that I wanted to go to with Quincy around the way that we're treated within the medical community and its connection to the fitness training and such. So I'm going to kind of work backwards. I want to talk about weight loss drugs in a second.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, controversy.
No.
But I'm thinking, I don't know about you, Jeff, but I know my physicians, they don't talk to one another. And it's kind of like, my endocrinologist is in Wyoming. My eye doctor is in Florida. They've never met. They don't talk, but they're both treating me. And time we had offline, Quincy, I talked about, do you have any doctors that maybe are coming to you to partner so that this treatment, because wouldn't it be cool, Jeff, if like those concerns you just mentioned, your doctor and Quincy were in consult together, right? Quincy saying, okay, we're going to strengthen the left side of his body, help that ankle gain a little bit more mobility. And the doctor's saying, okay, be careful because we did just do a cortisone shot for his bursitis. Oh, great. Thanks for that. Yeah. But how many times does it happen? Because more often than not, it's probably, Jeff, you go in, see the doctor, says, how's the bursitis? Do you want to get a cortisone shot today? Sure, doc, because it's really been bothering me. And then you go see Quincy, and Quincy's like, okay, Jeff, we're ready to work on that left side. So here's what we're going to do. And we're operating like, and I know because people have heard this, and I'm thinking of my wife, because she's heard me talk about the importance of personalized medicine for probably 15, 20 years. And it drives her up a wall because it's almost like I get it, personalized medicine. But it's like right in front of us.
Yes, it is.
So I want to take that. And do you have any physicians that have like said, hey, I want to work with you, to be a part of this team?
Sure. Yeah. My doctor and I, we talk a lot about these things, and first and foremost, it's going to be super important for everyone to have a doctor that they can be 100% transparent with, because those doctors, they're going to be they're your caretakers, you know. So if there's not things that they don't know about, then, you know, it's going to be hard for you to reach your goal. But to answer your question, I had mentioned to my doctor that, you know, in regards to some of my clients, and because I make it a point for a lot of my clients to, hey, make sure you check with your doctor and let them know that you are going to be starting an exercise program. I'll give them my contact info just in case anything happens. But standard procedure is you need a form for that. I think it's all parties accountable. I feel like most fitness professionals and people who are in this profession, I think it's important that they reach out to more doctors. One, that's a market that's untapped, you know, just giving people a little nudge out there. That's a market that's untapped. But number two, we talk about making an impact. How great of an impact can you make by teaming up and knowing that you both have this client's best care in heart? I have clients who they're on blood thinners right now, and it's something that we have to take precaution when it comes to strength training, but at the same time, allowing them and their doctor or their family practice or their primary care to know, hey, I have this person doing A, B, and C. They're doing this on these days. I'm going to test them again in the next 4 weeks, and we'll see what happens, you know? Yeah. And it's also important that the fitness professional understands the medication that, you know, their clients are taking, because I know there's a lot of medication that makes people tired, a lot of cholesterol, a lot of glucose medication. If you have to take those things combined and they're interacting with each other, sometimes it just takes you down. And so understanding that, hey, if a client misses a schedule or their blood sugar is low, what are the things that you're supposed to do in order to make that happen, in order to reach the goal? So having that contact, having that primary that connection with your primary care physician on both fronts, right? It's super important, and it's only going to impact the client even more.
And I want to be fair. I'm sorry, Jeff. This is my day for interrupting you. Let me stop. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, my family doctor, which it's about 3 years ago, we switched from a beloved family doctor, but she retired, to the new one. And he was surprised when we talked about medication. He says, most patients don't ask me the questions you're asking.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I see is because, and this is just from my example and a lot of the clients that I deal with, it doesn't matter. If the doctor says, hey, take this, they're going to take it. They're absolutely going to take it, because the number one answer is, well, my doctor told me to take this. And great, the doctor always has the best interest, but asking those questions.
It's like asking, what does this do?
Exactly.
Is there something less medicine-y that I can do?
Yes.
You know, that kind of thing.
Go ahead.
But yeah, he was just told, we have developed a very good relationship now, but he goes, 95 out of 100 people never ask that question.
That's great. And that shows your, not so much your curiosity, but your interest and your willingness to understand, and your seriousness about your health and what's going on in your body, how it's going to affect you, how it's going to affect your day. And once you communicate this with your coach, you know, then your coach can have a better understanding of what you're going through, have a better understanding how to program around any medications or any types of injuries, or, you know, those things are important, because if you don't have that, then it's, you know, you can have this goal, but if you run into a brick wall, how do you get around that? So,
and I think the advocacy piece is really important, because it is not the doctor's responsibility to pull out of us information as it relates to what we are doing lifestyle-wise, exercise, the whole deal. That's for us to speak up about.
Right.
And I know that there are probably many doctors out there that would say, well, Eric, yeah, I'd love to partner with others, but I can't even get my patient to be interested in to what you just alluded to, Jeff. So it's a blended level of responsibility and accountability.
To your point, I was thinking when we talk to our doctors, a lot of times they prescribe medication and they say, hey, you should take this along with diet and exercise.
Mm-hmm.
But the emphasis, take this pill versus the diet and exercise piece. And it's because, kind of like we said in the beginning, medicine, we tend to look at our health and medicine as a fix,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only going to work as much as you work,
Yeah.
And I don't know this to be true, but I want to, how many people who are on, blood pressure medication because of their high blood pressure, just take the blood pressure medication and no physical activity or no change of diet or anything, So it's critical that, and I think, like we said, the accountability on both parts, but if we can have more emphasis and more focus on the diet and exercise piece from a lot of the physicians, I think the patient and the client would adhere a little bit more to that.
So, Quincy, that brings me to the subject of weight loss drugs. Controversial as it may be, and I'll try to tread really lightly and without judgment and more curiosity, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes what gets left in the dust when these medications are prescribed by physicians is, yes, I understand they do work. You will lose weight most of the time, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk a little bit about the difference between losing muscle mass weight and the is it adipose weight?
Yep.
Potentially visceral.
Yep.
Okay. Because if you lose muscle weight, yes, when you get on the scale, it's going to show you are 10 pounds lighter.
Right.
But losing muscle mass is not a good thing, right?
No, you can definitely tell the difference between the weight that's being lost there. Most people who lose, the goal is to lose fat and to build some muscle to support your bones, but at the same time be in a healthy weight range.
Yes.
A lot of times, like we were saying about weight loss medication and some of the drugs that are prescribed, they'll do what they need to do, but at what cost? If you're not strength training, some of these things can break down bone density, and start to eat at your muscles. So once you start to have that, there's a certain feel that comes along with that. There's a certain loss of energy that comes along with that. And so you got to kind of ask yourself at that state, what am I doing wrong? Or is the juice worth the squeeze? Should I be doing more?
Yeah, because that Quincy is, obviously I'm not a clinician, but if somebody said to me, hey, my doctor says I can use Wegovy, Ozempic, whatever they may be, because I do want to lose this weight, I would say to them, check with your doc.
Correct.
And hopefully you have someone in the training space.
Yep.
Because if that was me, I better be lifting weights.
Yeah.
Because I have to, because it's like the two should go together.
Yeah.
It should be a non-negotiable. With the exception, I realize if someone is not physically able, but all things being equal, if you're going to be on the weight loss drug, you should be lifting. You should be strength training.
Correct. And I agree. I think a lot of times, especially in today's world, we don't, with the weight loss drugs, they work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we keep that same mindset with people who are taking some of these drugs? How do we keep that same mindset that it works? But if you're not working, it still may come with a price,
Yeah.
So don't take the candy away from the baby, as we say, but how do you manage and how do you have the two coexist?
Yeah.
Because it could be a beautiful thing if you're working with it, and if your body really, really needs it. But it can also be dangerous, just like any other drug or any type of supplement out there, if your body doesn't need it or you don't really know what you're taking or the side effects with it.
And hey, how did I do with navigating that controversial subject, Jeff?
I don't think we'll get many letters.
Okay.
No stern letters.
Well, and Quincy, I didn't even ask you, like, hey, we could probably talk about microdosing, but that would probably that would get us some letters, if not banning from Apple Podcasts or something.
It's, I was reading, or I was listening to something today that supported a lot of not just those things, but it's crazy how we take some of these drugs or some of these former hallucinogens and psychedelic drugs, and now the FDA is learning, hey, these aren't so bad in these types of doses in these types of settings. So again,
well, and where I was going with that, and obviously we're not going to go there today, but there is research. I mean, these I want to say they're peptides, right? These GLP-1s or whatever, and I'm butchering it. I know it, but they have been shown to have a really powerful effect at helping our bodies, our cells, and regenerating and all of that. That's a microdosing thing. It's not the same as, so for those in our audience, I'm not talking about your doc is not going to microdose you, more than likely.
Right.
That's probably not going to happen. But I think there is benefit and power to them. But I like where you're going, and this gives me opportunity to pivot to this mindset thing, how we think, how we feel about what we're doing. So let's start from the base of, what are some of the benefits we gain mentally from regular exercise?
Mentally, so for me, I know I do 45 minutes of cardio in the morning, at least 3 or 4 times a week, not because I gotta go, but just what it does to my mind, what it does to my mindset, how it sets my morning up.
Yep.
That sweat, that good energy, the endorphins that are released to help me and my mind, help me get through the day.
Yep.
So
improving focus, things of that
improving
nature.
focus, sleep, those different things. I think those are the main benefits, because if you have all those things, though, all of those things help improve your mindset and your outlook on not just the day, but life.
And realizing that what foods we're eating will play a part in this equation too, because where
Correct.
I'm going with it is the decision making.
It's
Okay.
You don't have to do 45 minutes.
Right.
You don't have to do
exactly
any of that.
Exactly. Because where I'm going with it too, Quincy, is that, for us in the emotional intelligence world, getting our brain and the different areas of our brain to work together, the main motivation for that is so that we'll be better at making decisions.
Yes.
Better choices, right? Which, as we all know, the better our choices, the better our outcomes.
Right.
Right? Whether that's relational, whether it's financial, whether it's whatever you want to fill in the blank with. So my encouragement here is for our audience, if you're in that place where you're wanting to start something, Jeff, you did a great job, your vulnerability and your journey. We realize that when it's really going to matter is that Monday morning when all the stuff hits the fan and you're supposed to be going downstairs to do your whatever number of whatever and your bike or your weightlifting or whatever. I want to get to the place, my desire for folks is to get to a place where the clarity is sharp, where they're able to call upon when the emotion may be of frustration because it's Monday morning and I don't feel like going, and why do I need to do that? That we might be in a place where we can call upon our parts of our brain and say, understand, you're feeling frustrated. This is frustration.
Yes.
However, my options are I could not do this, and I know maybe I'll be okay today, but I'm going to maybe take a couple steps back. Do I really want that?
Right.
Okay, what is it that I truly want? Well, I want to be healthy. I all of a sudden, that person begins a pivot.
Yeah.
I'm going to go downstairs and get on the bike.
The hardest part is putting your shoes on.
Right? I mean, and I'm saying that, Quincy, because emotions, I mean, this is all the time.
Yeah.
In every setting, situation, opportunity, problem, our ability to manage those leads us to the better decision and thereby.
And then to piggyback off of that, the feeling of satisfaction that you had a goal, you felt some sort of way at that point. Human emotion fluctuates. It does that, So regardless of your intentions on Monday morning, getting up, the whole outcome is, did you get it? Did you do it or did you not do it? And how much better will you feel if you just weather the storm, put the shoes on and 10 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. You'll feel much better in that moment throughout the rest of the day versus feeling good temporarily, in the morning, just under the covers. So,
yeah. So I have heard it said that there are 4 areas to focus on, primarily to get to a place that we call healthy. Maybe it's what we would say is, I'm forgetting the term now, and it's terrible because it's right in my head, and it begins with an M, metabolic health.
Okay.
Right? Good quality metabolic health. Sleep, stress, exercise, nutrition.
Yeah.
Are those the primary 4?
You got to look at those: sleep, nutrition, exercise, recovery.
Okay.
All of those are gonna help with the the whole wellness aspect of your well-being.
Right.
I don't think you should just focus on 1 or 2. I think you
got to really
you've got to really have all 4 of them. So
not to perfection. I want to be clear, right? I'm not saying that you've got to be an all-star scoring 10 every time, every day.
Right.
That's not the message.
I talk to my clients a lot about this, and I ask them these questions, in this world of exercise, health, and wellness, what do you think is the most important? Strength training, nutrition, sleep, recovery, mobility? Which one do you think? And I get a lot of depends, and really it does. If you look at in your 20s, those were the days where you could study all night or do whatever all night and then go get up in the morning and
or not get up because you didn't go to bed
or not get exactly just go straight to what you need to do, straight to work, and you're just going, that you can get away with certain things at certain points of your life, but being able to practice all of them is really, you really need all of the legs in order for it to work for help or health and well-being.
Primary because where I'm going with that is, and it kind of connects a bit back to the weight loss drugs, because I've had friends and family that will say, I'm going to ask my doctor because I can't lose this final 10 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I want to lose 20 pounds, so I'm going to do this. And I tread very lightly on giving advice in general, unless I'm asked.
Yeah.
So I've got scars to show when I offered it. However, in that light of that question about what do I think about that, is that I would say you'd want to make sure that the management of your stress, your sleep, exercise, and nutrition have been thoroughly gut check.
Correct.
Do an audit.
Correct.
And the toughest one inevitably is the food thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying this to throw judgment that anyone who thinks going through the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A and McDonald's on a regular basis is their thing. I'm not trying to rob you of that, because in the end, it's your life. You can do whatever you want.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The Spirit of EQ podcast is not here to tell you how to live your life. However, there's that sort of the fly in the ointment of, if I say I want to lose, but yet I want to keep holding on to Chick-fil-A,
mm-hmm.
you can't have both.
Right.
You see where I'm going?
Exactly. And
so from that,
at what point do you really sit down and evaluate what's
Sort of the consequential thinking.
Yeah. It's,
cost benefit.
Right. What's going to be the benefit? What's going to be the cost, And us being on the spirit of EQ, how well do you really know yourself? Like, if you say, you know what, it's Sunday, I'll go ahead and have that McDonald's or that pizza or whatever the case may be.
Yep.
Trust me, I've done it. We've all done it, right? Mindset comes in after that. Are you the type of person that's going to be able to say, okay, yep, I did that. That was great. I needed it. Now let's get back on it.
I love where you're going with this, and I'm interrupting.
I love it.
Since I'm in the company of friends, you probably would say, you don't need to say that.
Yeah.
But I feel obligated. In the fall, like as soon as we get into the crisp early morning, like typically in October.
Yeah.
Pumpkin muffins from Panera.
Oh man.
That's my go.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I have a definitive timeline for that. And then I stop. And it's not because I've got such great willpower, because quite frankly, I could eat them year round. Right.
Right.
But I'd made a decision, and I think in some ways that's where this really gets powerful, is making the decision and then managing the decision you made.
Right.
That I was not going to allow food to tell me how things were going to go. And I had discovered at the time that I made this decision was, food was like those pumpkin muffins were saying, hey, Eric, it's time.
Yeah.
Let's go. It wasn't Eric saying, it was the muffins were saying, let's go. And it really made me nervous because I'm thinking, what have I done here if I'm kind of being pulled along by my desire for that particular food?
Mm-hmm.
Please, in the audience, this is not judgment toward your decisions and choices and what you do or do not do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just giving you my story. I did not want to be in that place. I wanted to be in a place where, okay, what are we going to do?
Yeah. So I would ask this too. In the fall, because I'm the same way. There's certain things in the fall that I just got to have. Apple Crisp is one of them, When it comes around, it's Apple Crisp time. Let's go time. Sometimes I slip up too bad, but hey. But you had mentioned something, and it made me think. We don't want to be controlled by the food that we eat. Also, it's what we tell ourselves too. It's fall. I love the pumpkin muffins. It's fall. I want Apple Crisp. When it comes, your brain says, hey, it's that time. We're supposed to be doing this now.
Absolutely.
Is it right or wrong? I mean, can you
no, because your brain doesn't care.
It doesn't care.
Because someone could say, hey, it's fall. It's time for me to go and jump off 30-foot buildings with a parachute.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whatever it may be, your brain will normalize it.
Right. And that's the beauty of it. We just have to be aware of, okay, yeah, I do love Apple Crisp right now, especially on a Sunday with football. That's the best for me. But do I need to do it every Sunday? What are we talked about it. What are my big goals? Okay, I got to get up this Monday, and a certain thing doesn't come on at X amount of time, whatever that the case may be. I'm just giving an example.
Yep.
But you have to be the one, and you have to make it a conscious effort to say, hey, I'm supposed to be losing 20 pounds. I'm supposed to be losing 50 pounds. Is this part of the behavior that is going to get me to the 50 pounds?
Absolutely. And Quincy, I think of it as a case of encouragement for everyone listening here in the studio. Our brains will adjust to whatever you make that change, that neuroplasticity.
Yep.
Because because again, at this point in time in my life, I do not plan on giving up pumpkin muffins in the fall.
No, you shouldn't.
Okay. But you know what? My brain now supports, it's the end of fall. It's time to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the beginning, it was a little tough because I thought, it's October. Well, now it's November. Well, maybe in December.
I'll stop.
Yeah. but your brain will support those best, most optimal decisions.
Yep.
So as it always goes, we're running out of time, but I want to hit on one other thing before we close out. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what you have been working on? Not exclusive to your business model, but there's been some changes in your business model and what you're doing, and I really want our audience to hear more about that.
There's quite a bit. So I recently transitioned out of the
corporate world.
Because
you were doing
world.
corporate wellness.
Right? I was doing corporate wellness. I still am actively involved in corporate wellness, just not from a
You're
employee
an entrepreneur now.
Yeah.
Yes. Welcome to the tribe.
Ooh-wee.
Not that you were already there anyway.
Right.
But
that spirit is there. Yeah. So, but it's allowed me to further expand my business. I have a storefront that's opening down on right near Gay and High
in Columbus, Ohio.
Yep. It's called Quality Wellness Performance and Coaching. So there will be the goal is to build resilient minds and strong bodies through positive change, basically, and all we want to do is just foster that community where we talk about those whys, what it is that what your goals are. So,
and Quincy, I got to say, that has been one of the most compelling things about your approach to helping people is that you wanted it to be not just about be in the gym, do this exercise, lose this weight. You included the things that, quite frankly, are the real key on whether or not somebody will sustain this,
right?
Which I've loved. I've always loved about you.
Thank you. It's there, and it's really why I got into this work is, there's people. We're all looking for the same thing, right? We're all looking for the same thing, but how do we get there? How do we get there and still feel good about ourselves? It's not always going to be pretty, but you also need somebody that's going to give you that encouragement, give you that motivation, but most importantly, give you grace and allow yourself to give yourself grace,
Yeah.
So, but the strength training, all the components, all of it is still there. So,
so what if, for those who are in the Columbus, Ohio area, and I'm going to kind of split it in half. So for those in the Columbus, Ohio area, if they're interested in learning more about what you offer, best way for them to get in touch would be? And we'll have this in the show notes for our audience as well. So no worries if you don't have a pen handy or whatever.
Sure. I'm active on all platforms, primarily Instagram at Quality Wellness Columbus.
Okay.
We have our website, qwcolumbus.com. And you can reach me at Quincy at qwcolumbus.com.
Okay. So all of that will be in the show notes. And then what about like the person maybe who's listening who's in Austin, Texas, and they really like what they heard from you, and there was a connection made virtually, as I might call it. Do you only work with people in Columbus, Ohio, or can you do things outside of that?
All outside. I have clients all around the world. That was one of the reasons why I did start Quality Wellness is because of the accessibility of
and the reach.
And the reach, exactly. So it doesn't matter if you're in Texas or Florida, I'll still be able to help you.
Well, Florida would be great in February, I'm sure.
Yeah, fly me down.
There you go. There you go. Jeff, you got anything else before we close out?
No, I just you've helped me because I'm starting something now. You've given me some insight of a couple things.
That's great.
I appreciate it, and nice seeing you again.
No problem. No problem.
And Quincy, it won't be 2 years. I think we probably need to have at least some kind of semi-regular appearance from you, because keeping us updated on this one. And I'm personally passionate about it just because of, and I don't know if I've ever told you this. I think I have, and Jeff has heard this story. When I was in the corporate arena, I was the absolute worst. I was one of those that thought, well, because I have a big this and a big that, then it'll take care of itself.
Right.
And then I found when I was out of that world permanently and tried to do some of the physical activities that I've been told would really help me, I thought I was going to have a coronary. And then I realized how out of shape I was, and I was embarrassed. And it was the same thing like with the food. I cannot allow my life to be controlled by these outside forces.
Right.
So we're so appreciative of you coming on.
I appreciate you guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We look forward to the next time we're together. Take care. Hi, everyone. This is Eric again. A couple of things as we've ended the show. We hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully, you're tuning in on a regular basis. We'd love it if you would give us a great review on whatever platform you're listening to the podcast. It's so appreciative and helps us as we try to get more exposure for the work we do and the episodes that we publish. And we're grateful to you as a listener. The second thing is, just remember, our content is for educational purposes only. It's not intended by any stretch to diagnose or to treat anything that may be occurring in your life or anyone else's life that you may be connected to through the podcast. But once again, we appreciate you tuning in to the shows. And as always, we look forward to the next time that we're together. Take care.